Good morning, everyone. This is going to be a fairly extraordinary hour and a half, I hope. My role is to try to make it extraordinary in itself, but to stop various things happening, which include stopping John Lennox and Christopher Hitchens going on at inordinate length. One thing strikes me in introducing this debate, and it is that we still see flapping across the landscape from time to time, particularly on the occasions of general elections. We haven't got one at the moment, but who knows. The old canard that public debate is dead or dying or in some kind of semi-comatose state. Events like this, at the festival, at the book festival around the corner, at festivals around the country, give a lie to that. Public debate is alive and well, and there should be a good one. Christopher will propose the motion, if you like to be formal, that the new Europe should prefer the new atheism. John Lennox will take the opposing view. One thing I want to do, and this is something Intelligence Squared and their debates do, and it's very useful, is just to take a very easy, quick, preliminary show of hands. Those who feel that they're in favor of the proposition, those who are against, and perhaps just as important, by show of hands, those who are undecided, and then we can do a sort of before and after thing. Can I just briefly ask you, those who come in convinced that the motion is broadly one that they would support, just show. Right? Those who feel at the moment that it's one that they would oppose, slightly bigger. Those who are genuinely or diplomatically at the moment undecided. That's about the same, and some of you haven't expressed an opinion. We'll see how it is at the end.
Now, we've studied astronomy. We'll be doing astrology after lunch. Don't let it happen here, and don't catch yourself referring to the stupid movement that is paying for this and trying to insinuate itself as a creationist movement. Don't call it by the name they want you to call it. Don't call it intelligent design. It may have been rather crudely designed, but there's nothing intelligent about it. And one of the ways in which they sell it is to try and get it called by this fancy name for creationism. Then I'd have to say there's a fourth threat, and it's, I don't want to sound melodramatic, but it's an enemy within. It's the capitulation of our actually existing Christian churches, the ones that we hardly notice, the ones that we take for granted. That wonderful man who does that near faultless impersonation of a sheep, the Right Reverend Rowan Williams, for example, who in his innocuous way says, how much would it hurt? A man whose current head of the church is, of course, our sovereign lady, the Queen, but the moment her brave old heart ceases to beat, the head of his church will be Prince Charles, a bat-eared Muslim fancier with no taste in women, who says he wants to be now defender of all faiths. This is what you get if you found a church on the family values of Henry VIII, of course.
Truth, religious or secular, ladies and gentlemen, cannot be imposed by force. After all, it was Christ who said, render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's and to God the things that are God, on which the separation between church and state is based. Now here's a puzzle. Since the new atheists claim to be against religious violence, they should be applauding Christ, as I see it, for his denunciation of hypocritical and abusive religion, and for his insistence on the highest standards of morality. I'm afraid the new atheists confuse the essential message of Christianity by the horrific abuses of Christendom. Because after all, Christian teaching is foundational to European civilization. The prominent German thinker Jürgen Habermas, who calls himself a methodological atheist, says Christianity and nothing else is the ultimate foundation of liberty, conscience, human rights, and democracy, the benchmarks of Western civilization. To this day, we've no other option than Christianity. We continue to nourish ourselves from this source. Everything else is postmodern chatter. Ironically, Christianity gave Europe its universities that educated the new atheists, the liberty that permits them to propagate their views, and the law that protects them. As influential intellectual atheist John Gray points out, the new atheists defend liberal freedoms without asking where they come from.
What I'm going to be quick about is this, is the concept of a secular totalitarianism. I have a couple of points to make. First is that religion is totalitarian in itself and in principle. It tells you that you are subject, or should be, or would be better if you were, subject to a constant round-the-clock surveillance and supervision and invigilation that goes on while you're asleep, it starts before you're born, and most importantly of all, goes on after you are dead, and that can convict you, this Big Brother system, of thought crime. Again, even while you're asleep, or having a thought you didn't even know you were going to have, and that will lead to eternal damnation. That's a totalitarian principle from which there is no appeal. It's an unalterable system of power and domination. I'm very relieved to be able to tell you that there's no evidence at all for believing there's any truth to it. Small correction, Jesus of Nazareth said he came not to bring peace but a sword. And there's every evidence that he and his disciples meant by that what any person would have assumed they were meant to mean from it.
Jesus didn't come to bring peace but a sword. That's absolutely right. And the sword was a division in those who were prepared to accept him and trust him, and those who would reject him. The fact that he didn't mean a physical sword is perfectly clear from the occasion when his disciples took swords to defend him. And he said, "Put your swords away. People that live by the sword will perish by the sword." He didn't resist arrest. Pilate knew that. And the turning point in the conversation with Pilate, because Pilate was extremely concerned, was this a political revolutionary, a man of violence? And Jesus said, "My kingdom is not of this world, either because if it were, my servants would have been fighting." And Pilate publicly exonerated him from the charge. So it seems to me that it's very clear what Jesus meant by that.
And that's why I'm glad that this debate has turned into one that's somewhat less about Europe and somewhat more about ideas. And I'll take up another couple of your points if I may. Jesus offers vicarious redemption, what used to be called scapegoating or human sacrifice. He says, "Throw your sins on me, I'll take them, and your sins will cease to be yours." Now, those of us who are not religious regard that as an immoral preachment as well as a fantastic one. I can pay your debt if you're in debt. I can take your debt on myself and pay it for you. In very extreme conditions, I could offer to serve someone's sentence in prison. Great humanists have indeed done that, or even to take someone's place before a firing squad. Great humanists have done that too. But I can't take your sins away from you, because essential to the concept of human decency and integrity is that very individual idea that you are responsible. I can't take your responsibilities away.
You see, I could describe marriage, ladies and gentlemen, as a terrible thing. There's a woman in my house and she watches all that I do and she sees everything and so on. And I could write off marriage for that reason. You see, the trouble is God watching over us has two sides. Firstly, the care and attention, which is foundational to me in my life and in my family life. Secondly, the fact that there's a God watching means there's going to be justice. Because Stalin, whatever the complicated mixture of religion and power politics was in his heart, the one thing, as David Berlinski, a mathematician and an agnostic Jew, pointed out in his recent book, is this: neither Hitler, Stalin, or Pol Pot, or any of the others, thought that God was watching them. I wish they had.
When President Bush writes to Kim Jong-il, he has to call him "Dear Mr. Chairman" because he's not Mr. President. He's only the head of the party of North Korea and the army. The presidency is held by his father, Kim Il-sung, who's been dead for 15 years. So North Korea, you might say, is a mausolocracy, or a necrocracy, or a thanatocracy. Anyway, it's one short of a trinity. That's the thing I'm drawing your attention to.